Let's start creating our first report together. Click into blank report and then you will be asked automatically to connect the data. For purposes of this lesson, I will add Google Analytics demo Google account GA4 Google Merge Shop. Let's click on it and click Add. And then Looker Studio will automatically create our first chart called Table. If we click on it, you will see on the right side of your screen such overview. Here you will see the data source, which we have added. We will see dimension, metrics, we will have number of rows, we will have options to sort our data, and we also will have option to set the date and the filters. But let's start from the beginning. So let's firstly see what charts are available for us. If you click in here, add a chart, you will see table, you will see scorecard, time series, bars, pies, Google Maps, and so many different charts. We will go through them step by step, but let's start with a table. So in here we do have dimensions, and dimensions are equal to data fields that describe your data and provide context for your metrics. They represent the categories or attributes of your data answering the who, what, or where of your analysis. For example, it could be the city, the device type, the traffic source, or it could be a product category, or as in our case, it's actually an event name. Then we also have metrics, and metrics are numbers that show us how much or how many of something. They measure your data and tell you like totals, average, or percentage. For example, sessions on your website, average session duration, like a revenue or transaction. So let's create our first table, which could be actually useful for us to analyze the data. Let's provide session, source, and medium. If you just start with Looker Studio, it might be difficult for you to find the right dimensions or metrics, but take your time, you will learn them through, and then it will be way much easier for you to write them down automatically. So let's choose session and source and medium in here. And here we can choose sessions in metrics. Usually metrics are colored by blue in Looker Studio and dimensions by green. So it's way much easier for you to recognize what data you should put in those tabs. So firstly, we will see how many sessions we've got from direct source, from Google Organic, from Google CPC, and the list goes on. Afterwards, we can scroll down and we can also show a summary row where all our sessions will be calculated as a summary from all our sources. Also in here, we do have number of rows and we can choose how many rows we would like to see on the first page. As you see in here, we have first 10 rows out of 61. We can actually expand it to 100 and then all our rows will be available just to scroll it or make our table bigger and then the rows will expand. Or we can do another way. We can include only top n. For example, we can include like top 10, and then in here you will see top 10 sources which generate the most of the sessions, and the rest, for example, we can group others. We can click in here as well, like others, it will appear in here. Depends on your purpose of the reports. We can choose both, but for this lesson I will choose the option where we can show our 20, let's say, per page. And then here, if I would like to, I can also switch the pages. Now let's add another metric, for example, active users. And if we scroll down, we can see that we do have an option to sort our table. We can sort it by dimensions, also by metrics. So if you click in here, you will be able to sort it either per sessions, or you will be able to sort it by active users. And you see the data has changed a little bit. This sortation will be automatically added to your table once you set it in the edit mode. But obviously, if you're in view mode, you can still sort your table manually by either dimensions or by metrics as well. We can also add a secondary sort, which allows you to organize your data more precisely by adding a secondary sorting rule. If two or more rows in your report have the same value in the first sort column, the second sort determines the order within those rows. So for example, if we would have a row which stands for date and we would set it as a first sort, then we can also set a secondary sort for sessions. This way we will make sure that our date is sorted correctly by a date, but also by sessions. And the last but not least, we can also set a default date range where we set it either as an auto, last 28 days exclude today, or we can set custom date. We can choose either fixed or today, yesterday, this month, this week, week today, this month, and so on. Also, we can choose last 7 days, or we can do advanced date where we set exact dates where we would like our data to show. For now, let's keep it as an auto last 28 days. And also we can add comparison date range where we could compare our data either to previous period, to previous year, or to a fixed date where you can just select, for example, from 1st of December till 20th of December. But for purposes of this lesson, let's go to previous period, meaning our our last 28 days will be compared to past 28 days. And now let's work on visualization part where we would style our table. So if we click into style and we have to select our table, we can choose different types. For example, we can show title of our table and we can name it. Either it will be auto-generated or we can provide our own name. Let's name it all sources. Let's choose the 18 pixel. Let's keep it this way. And let's choose railway font. Also, we can choose the position. Either it will be central and either it should be on the top or at the bottom of our table. Let's keep it at the top. Also, we can add conditional formatting where we could, for example, type as single color or color scale. Then we select the field, for example, session source or medium, select the condition, contains, for example, organic, and choose color and style. We can choose the full row as blue, and then we click save. And as you see, all our sources which have medium organic turned blue. Then we have table header where we can show our header or we cannot. Text wrap, also we can show field descriptions if we would like to. And also we can choose our font and our size of the font and also the color. Let's choose railway, I like it so much. And also we can choose table colors where we can set our main color as green, for example. Also, we can set another like row colors, and we can also set many different way, different parameters. Be creative and you can play with your tables, but please don't exaggerate and don't do something like this because it would be way much harder to read. So sometimes it's better to keep it more simple, and usually I change only this header background color. We can also change here our percentage of previous period, the change of the data. If it's positive, automatically it sets as green, but if it's negative, it sets as red. But sometimes you might want to change it. For example, if you would like to show the data of cost, and once the cost is lower than if once it's negative, you would like to show it as a green, and then once it's positive, then you would like to show it as red. So it depends on the data which you would like to show. Table labels also, we can change the railway, for example, font, and we can also make it a little bit bigger. We can also choose row numbers. We can either exclude them or include. We can do auto hide, wrap text again, and horizontal scrolling as well. We can also freeze our columns, for example, session, source, and medium, and this way you will see that it's not going to move. But I barely use those options, to be honest. Also, we can work on our table footer. We can also set missing data as null or show no data, and so on. If it comes to dimensions, we can set them center, for example, this way. In metrics, we can also do it this way and like this. If you would like to compact your numbers, you can do it also this way. And also you can show absolute change, meaning the change will be shown not in the percentage, but in actual amount. We can also choose where we would like to show our tooltip, left, right, top, bottom, and so on. We can also work on the table overall, like choose, for example, a background color, or we can choose a border if it's going to be solid or dotted or so on, and choose, for example, the color for our border. And also we can add border shadow, and we can also set a chart header to show on hover. For example, when you hover on active users, it appears as active users. And if you would like to reset your report, you can click in here. And all the data will be resetted. But also, if you have clicked it by mistake, you can actually undo it by clicking the arrow in here. But let's reset our report for now, and I will also delete our rule. If it comes to the table, we also have two different types of table where we can actually set the table with bars, and it will look this way, where all our metrics will be shown in bars. And for example, we can style it as well in some different way. The most useful styling which you can add to those type of tables are showing numbers of those bars. If you click in here on each metric, you can see how the numbers are added. And also you can add a show axis in here, and you can also show target. So for example, if your axis is 10, 20, 30K, you can set target to 15K, and then you will see the target in here, and you will see what source and medium is reaching the target and those which are not reaching it. And the last option of table are table with heat map, where you can see by color what session source and medium um, reaching the biggest numbers and the lowest numbers by color heat. And actually you can edit those heat map or bar or numbers in styles per each metric. So for example, in the first metric as sessions, we will leave the heat map, but in second metric, we can choose, for example, bar, or we can choose numbers. So you can style your tables in different ways. And now I would love to style our table for the purposes of this lesson, how I usually do it on a daily basis for my job, so we can use this data afterwards in next lessons. So as you can see, guys, usually I use very little style adjustments just to make my tables clear, readable, and that it contains the most useful information which I can analyze afterwards. Thank you for this lesson, guys. In the next lessons, we will discuss other charts such as scorecards, time series, and so on. So I'll see you in the next lesson.